since I've seen you. You were, as I said, part of that dream team which accomplished that staggering victory of acquitting him. He was later found liable in civil court for those murders. I've always wanted to ask you, do you believe truly in your heart of hearts that he was innocent of those murders?
Elizabeth, I believe truly in my heart of heart that both verdicts were consistent with the evidence. I'll go to my grave in terms of the criminal case, believing because the jury had to question not whether he was guilty or innocent, but whether the prosecution were successful in proving his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And for great reasons that I know, after spending 9 months in trial, I am comfortable with that verdict. At the same time, there's a different standard in the civil case. All they have to do is prove that there was proof by a preponderance of the evidence. That's 50.01% proof. If I were sitting on the civil jury, I also understand why the evidence would support that verdict as well.
It sounds like you're saying, but Carl, it sounds like you're saying he was guilty of the crime, but the prosecution couldn't prove it in the criminal court.
No, ma'am. I'm saying that the prosecution failed in their burden of proving him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I have my own individual beliefs based on my having conversations and spending hours with OJ.
What are those? What do you believe?
I understand why the civil jury ruled the way that they did.
And so what do you believe in your heart of hearts?
Ma'am, the O.J. Simpson that I know, I believe, was not able, did not possess the character to commit the 2 crimes with which he was charged. I spent hours with him. I've spent hours with murderers, but I will go to my grave always having that doubt.
Some of the reactions to his death from people who knew him were good riddance, what a relief, and no great loss for the world. That last one from the father of Ron Goldman, who Simpson was found liable of brutally murdering. You surprised by that?
Not at all. I've never lost a son in the height of his youth. So I would not be so bold as to deign to criticize anything that Mr. Goldman or the Brown family have ever said. Yeah. I understand the nature of his rage, so I wouldn't dare say anything bad about that.
As OJ's one-time lawyer, criminal lawyer, what did you make of this book he wrote, If I Did It? And this interview he wanted to do where he would hypothetically explain how the murders happened. These do not sound like the musings of an innocent man.
I think what that sounded like was someone who was desperately needing to make money after having his resources depleted defending himself of murder. The one thing that the O.J. Simpson experience proved is how there's so much shortcoming financially on behalf of public defender agencies across the country to be able to attack and respond to the awesome power of the prosecution. O.J. Simpson had millions of dollars and was willing to spend it to defend himself, hiring the best experts, hiring the best investigators. And after spending that money, he had to do everything he could, even if it was to write a book to try to replenish those funds.
A book like that, though? Come on, Carl. You didn't think to yourself, if I did it? I mean, it sounded like the one time in his life, because, by the way, friends who spoke to him even a few weeks before he died said he never once expressed any regret or remorse for anything. And by the way, it wasn't just the murder charges. During that trial, we saw terrible images of Nicole beaten and bruised and bloodied that she had kept as evidence of his domestic violence against her.
Well, first of all, Elizabeth, he never sought my counsel as to the wisdom to write this book. I haven't spoken to him since the day after the verdict when we were celebrating at his house.
Wow.
So I'm not here to speak to any of the choices that he made after the verdict. I worked for a great man, Johnny L. Cochran Jr., spending 13 years of my life working with him. And because he is no longer alive, and no one from the defense ever wants to speak about their defense of O.J. Simpson other than me, I take it upon myself to lift up his memory and his legacy. There's an entire generation of Americans who do not know anything about Johnny L. Cochran Jr. And if I can spend time coming on your show to help educate your audience, that I think is a good favor I can do for his legacy.
Very quickly, Carl, I know you think that he got quite a long sentence in Las Vegas for being convicted of robbery. He claims he was stealing back his own sports memorabilia. You have always felt that that long prison sentence was payback, in essence, that they threw the book at him because he got away with murder.
Yes, ma'am, because the judge in that case held the jury until 11 o'clock at night on October the 3rd, 13 years to the day from our verdict in October 3rd of 1995. The judge imposed a sentence of 33 years for a man with no prior felony convictions that at most was worth 2.5 years, to reflect and to echo the $33 million that was awarded in the civil case. So I will go to my grave believing that was not fair justice. That was payback for him successfully being defended in Los Angeles.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.